my last video spoke about what it actually is about cars that we really love, and this is the follow on from that. It's a conversation with my mate Rob.
When we started first talking about this, you said, "Look, I've got this idea," and you showed me what you were doing. I was like, "Yeah, that's really cool," because I think there's a general feeling. I've spoken to quite a few of my friends and colleagues that in the industry. That's like, have we somehow we've maybe lost our way a little bit in terms of what it is in terms of what it is that we're doing, and have things become too commoditized, um,
Yeah,
and how do we reset the course a little bit, and make things give things the personality that they've lost to a certain extent, and because things have kind of converged a lot, and there's a lot of discussion about being a bit braver, and about thinking about what it is we actually create, because I think we've all I think a lot of vehicle design has ended up creating kind of mobility commodities to a certain extent.
yeah.
Um,
So the performance of modern cars is all very similar because the the tricky bit, which used to be the engine and the driving dynamics and the gearbox, etc., all of that's been simplified into an electric motor. Um,
yeah,
so there's a democratization of performance, but it's fair to say as well that the build quality, certain of the massive amount of Chinese OEMs that are they're becoming really well established in Europe and across the world.
fantastic.
The quality of the products is brilliant and
Yeah.
very difficult to say that even an established, 100-year-old European luxury car manufacturer, it's very
Mm.
difficult to say that that's better than a Chinese product from an OEM that didn't exist 10 years ago, because the amount of investment, the amount of manpower, and the R&D that's gone into those vehicles is amazing.
Mm.
But it's meant that there's very little difference between any OEM product.
I think a lot of people are thinking about that, aren't they? They're thinking about what is it that we're making, and how do we infuse it with the personality of the brand, of the OEM.
Yeah,
Because things have got kind of blown about, and there are lots of very, very clever people, I think, out there that are trying to work out how they get that back into um, some product, which
yeah.
is great, but it will take a while, you know, to do that.
But
You know,
at the same time as the technology all converging into a similar product across OEMs, we're also experiencing a change in how people own vehicles. So or don't own them, as the case may be, for their primary mode of transport. There's a lot of people lease now, so
yeah.
they're less emotionally involved or um, swayed by the product they're leasing because they don't see it as such an important considered life choice. They just see it as a short term commodity product that they're going to replace in 2 years anyway.
Yeah, yeah, and it's so difficult, isn't it? Because that's a mechanism by which mechanism that OEMs use in order to sell products.
Yeah,
You know, but it has removed an engagement with that product, the commoditization of it, and it's like, you know, a lot of it becomes like, there's the number that I know I'm going to spend that much a month. That's what I've got to spend. Right? What am I gonna do to, what sliders am I going to put around to achieve that number, and then what spec can I eke out of it, and keep that number where it needs to be, and it's like, it's a little bit it's a little bit sad that
mm.
that's the way, that because that's also a big purchase,
Yeah,
or
and
even though it's not a purchase, it's a lease. It's
yeah,
still
a commitment.
what, a mortgage payment, half a mortgage payment, however you want to look at it. And it's like, well, that's a kind of crazy commitment with that little engagement in what you're actually going to get at the end of it.
Yeah, and because we've got ride sharing apps and things as well, I feel like access to transport isn't necessarily as valued as it maybe was 30 years ago. Um,
Mm.
so maybe when we were growing up and we saw getting a car as your freedom, um, it's different now.
Well, yeah, it is. But like like we said before, I'm not. That needs to be really tested, I think, because there's a general thought process that says, yeah, people don't, yeah, kids don't want this, teenagers don't want that. But I'm not so sure that's entirely the case. You know, people are a reflection of what they get introduced to. You know, and certainly, certainly, I never sat my kids down and said, "Your dad's a car designer, so you must like cars." And my daughter was very anti-car until she realised, hang on a minute, that if I have one of those, it means that I can go wherever I want to go with whoever I want to go with, whenever I want to do it. And all of a sudden, she's like, I can't wait till I can take my driving test. You
Yeah.
know, and they've both done, driving experiences, that you can go and do on airfields and things when you're below the driving age, and so I think I think there is an interest in it, and I think
Mm.
it will come back. It's the interest in new experiences and experiences that are quite visceral as
Hmm.
well. I think it really there is an appetite for it.
Yeah, and I feel like I feel the same with my son, who's recently taken up playing Horizon on the Xbox, and suddenly he's interested in cars.
Yeah, yeah,
And it's almost like for him in video game world, there is a lot of focus on the performance of it and what it can do. However, he's also been playing Fortnite, where it's about dressing up the car and the characters and
yeah,
doing things that are not necessarily um, purely about either um, driving somewhere or the performance of the vehicle. And that's something that, getting away from this idea that all exciting cars are performance cars,
yeah,
um, that's that's something that struck me with my 1950s car um, with its heavily modified 100 horsepower, but it's still got a beam axle and leaf springs, and it still
yeah,
feels terrifying at 30 miles an hour,
yeah,
um,
yeah,
and massively engaging. And yeah, perhaps when you compare it on a spec sheet against even a base level modern car, it doesn't stack up. But in reality, it does, and those are the things that I think.
mm,
Not only does it stack up, it's way more exciting. It's a lot more fun.
yeah,
It feels um, the sense of danger is kind of heightened, even though it's not specifically an unsafe vehicle.
yeah.
Um, and I think your experience is similar with your Fiat.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you're totally right. Like so with the 90s Cinquecento, it's exactly the same. We've said before, haven't we? It's like you don't have to go fast; it has to feel fast. They're
Yeah.
completely two completely different things. And having that, like is fantastic because you're not breaking the speed limit anywhere. You can drive it flat out everywhere,
Mhm.
and you're not going to do anyone any harm, basically.
Yeah.
And people kind of laugh at it when you tell, when I told mates, they were like, I was like, I bought a 90s Cinquecento Sporting, and they were like, what? And then they get in it and they start to smile, and you're like, yeah, that's why I got this car, and everything about it is completely visceral, you
Mhm.
know, um, and my particular favourite, this is very niche, is because it's got yellow wing mirrors and they're absolutely tiny.
Yeah.
I kind of think that I'm Nigel Mansell driving an early 90s Williams,
Williams. Yeah.
because they literally are that big.
Yeah.
They're but yeah, everything about it is just a laugh, and can work on it. But I don't know what I'm doing. But what am I going to do? It's like I'm not going to cost myself any money. I'm not going to electrocute myself. So why not?
Mm.
And it's got a Haynes manual. I mean, I don't think you even get them anymore. Um, so yeah, everything about it is looking for, um, yeah, it's just looking for a bit of excitement, a bit of fun, but it doesn't have to cost the earth at all, and it doesn't have to be a gazillion T horsepower.
Mm.
In fact, it can be 55.
Yeah. And that's the sporting model as well.
and that is the sporting model with body coloured bumpers.
Mm.
Everything. I mean, it's got what is it? It's got lecky windows. So there you go. That's kind of the one nod, I think, to modern luxury in that car
But
is
it's
the lecky
smart because there's
windows.
only one set of switches. There isn't a set in each door, is there? It's
No,
just one set
exactly. They're there.
in the
Well,
middle.
why not? Exactly.
Yeah.
Why do I want to control the other person's? I don't. I can't. You know. I like the fact that the central locking works sometimes,
Yeah.
not all the time. I think that's lovely.
It's more of
Um,
it's stating it's more of an intent to be locked rather than
it
being locked,
is.
isn't it?
It is. So which I've got a lot of time for. I was just trying to think. I absolutely adore. I mean, it's very sad, but the the heating controls are so easy to use. You know, and this is another bugbear of mine. It's like I can't set it to 18.5 degrees. I don't know what 18.5 degrees is. I don't know what 23. All I know is it hot? Is it cold? Is it in the middle? Yes. There we
Mm.
go. So, you know, that's it. I haven't reset the clock yet after the battery went flat, but that's just a me problem. Um, yeah. So, you know, and it does everything you could ask of it.
Yeah,
I've
and
even driven it. Yeah, I drove it down to Heathrow on a trip to Sweden because it was the only car available at the time. And I thought, oh man, I'm gonna have to drive that down the M40. And actually, it's absolutely fine.
yeah, and that kind of
Mm.
mostly people are not buying cars like that or
No,
another fun modern car like the Ami or something as their primary mode of transport. So you are going to be much more forgiving of it, and you are going to find time uh, uh, to play with it because it doesn't
mm,
matter if you go out one day and the battery's flat because it wasn't you're not in a rush to get to work in it because you weren't using it as your primary car. So
no,
it kind
no.
I
That's
think
yeah.
the attachment with them grows because you have to nurture it.
This is a it's a really good way of looking at it. I think because yeah. Also, it's about using cars in the right context, isn't it? I guess which um, we have created peak. Not I wouldn't say peak car, but peak mobility device we've created because they never go wrong. They literally are. You can buy the cheapest possible brand new car and it will be a good car in terms of
Mm.
getting you from A to B. Um, but they don't engage you. But yeah, the cars that do like one thing well, or you should be used in a specific context, they are they are seen as a luxury. But then it depends. It depends what you're spending on them as well, doesn't it? Because actually, if you're that way inclined, you could have three cars for the cost of one car, and it can one of them does this, one of them does that, and one of them does it. You know what I mean? And
Mm.
they can. It depends. It depends what you're into, I think.
Mm.
But I think that's the point of this. Is like you say, it's very single-minded in we want to you want to create something that's exciting.
Yeah,
It's got a connection. People are just connected to it, and like I'm going to spend a Sunday morning driving that because it's just going to be fun.
yeah,
Yeah, and that's a pretty cool endeavor, I think, to get to do that.
yeah. I think so. Like we were talking about earlier about making it um, the experience. When you look at the experience of what a fun car is, and it is more like owning a motorcycle, and it is more
Mm,
in line with um, how people see motorcycles. That if you have a car without a roof, people complain you're going to get wet. Whereas on a motorbike, you just put your helmet on and you deal with it.
yeah, yeah. Have the right clothes.
Yeah,
Which
check
is
the
no
weather
longer it
forecast.
used to be all those years ago, if you
Yeah,
think about it, isn't it?
yeah,
Like when the chauffeur didn't have a roof,
hmm
or when you were first starting off, it was like have a good hat and have a good hat, good gloves, and a good coat.
yeah. If you're
You
going
know,
out for the day, take a change of clothes.
yeah, yeah. So whereas, and I'm I'm the first to say like there are cars that I've got, and I will go out in them and it's like it's raining, it's cold, and I've got a pair of shorts and some Crocs on. You know what I mean? And it's like, no, that's a different thing, isn't it? And it's going to be fun, kind of, getting into that and understanding, all of those things that I think excite people and they
Yeah,
offer a bit of fun. Yeah.
yeah.